That's a magic number.
3 certainly is the magic number, whether it be the greatest film franchise of all time, a sublime television series broken up into 3 distinct segments, or video games. And of course, here at ZXL, we only do one thing with video games, and that is plat them. And a trilogy of divine games comes with a trinity of fantastic platinums for us to go and earn. Seeing any completed set in a hunter's list is the stuff of saucy desires and wet dreams. But of course, just like individual games differ in difficulty, so too do trilogies, although luckily most share a similar pattern in their trophy lists. Target audiences and all that, I guess. If the first game is a ruthless 9 out of 10 with online PvP impossible to boost, then it's likely that its successors will follow suit with equally grueling plats to attain. And we want to offer trilogies to all who wish to accrue a stack of epic completed platinum sets. Today we are focused on beginner trilogies for newer hunters looking to start knocking out franchises on their budding trophy lists. But if this video does go down well, then we will follow it up with intermediate and expert trilogies for you all to go and platinum as well. So make sure you drop a like and a comment if you want to take your next trinity of plats to the next level. Here are the brilliant trilogies with easy platinum trophies for the beginner hunters. So let's go. A mascot maestro from the good old PS1 days, and our first entry is a classic dragon-starring platformer with so much to offer, you'll chew through its platinums in no time. It's Spyro. Debuting in 1998 when I was still but a kid, Spyro was originally a PlayStation 1 exclusive, adored by all who played it. How sad that this one-time face of Sony's original system is now owned entirely by direct rival Xbox. But you can still buy and platinum the trilogy's remake, Spyro Reignited, and more importantly, you should do. Yes, these remakes are far shinier and prettier than the original incarnations, but the games capture everything from the 98 iteration perfectly with refined mechanics and controls, and wrapping each game with modern graphics. Each is true to its OG counterpart, and earning their platinums is a celebration of those early PS1 days. Toys for Bob did an absolutely exceptional job on these games. The first game sees Nasty Nork entrap all of Spyro's friends in crystal prisons, leaving only Spyro and his dragonfly buddy Sparx to defeat Nork and free them all. Now, Sparx acts as the Robin to Spyro's Batman and gets fun little top-down view levels of his own throughout the trilogy, but primarily acts as a health bar for Spyro by changing colour, and is a counter for the orbs Spyro collects that eventually add up to a new life. Now, I'm completely ignoring the PSMP guides on this trilogy because honestly none of them reflect my experience with the games at all. For example, the first game is probably the hardest. Not that any of them are actually hard, but 2 things with the first one do make it slightly trickier in places than the second and third. Firstly, your gliding ability is at a bare minimum in the first installment, making certain ledges hard to reach, something that simply isn't a problem with improved moves and added abilities later in the series. Secondly, you die if you touch water, which is a thing from 90s games that I just never understood, and I still don't to this day, but it is what it is. Again, something that isn't a problem in the next 2 installments. Spyro 1 is a 3 out of 10 difficulty that requires a lot of collectible hunting, which without a guide may have you zipping from world to world, searching every nook and cranny for that last goddamn gem. Without a guide, I imagine the game will take 10 to 12 hours, and this is why I disagree with the PSMP guide that states it's a 2 out of 10 for 7 hours. Just let me know which of these you think is more accurate in the comments. Is it a 2 out of 10 7-hour platinum, or is it a 3 out of 10 10-hour platinum? Spyro 2 Ripto's Revenge introduces Ripto and improved abilities for travel and traversal. I personally found the second game the easiest of the 3 with a 2 out of 10 difficulty and an 8 to 10 hour completion at most. Travelling through Avalar in the second installment is easier and far more enjoyable. The third game, Year of the Dragon, my favourite of the 3, with the best moveset in the trilogy, Spyro really is finding his feet, or wings, by the trilogy's climax. I will say that the camera lock in boss fights, however, is annoying as hell, but this may be altered in options, I just didn't check. However, I do love the game despite some modern complaints. I don't remember any negativity when it was originally released. Me and my friends, all of whom were teens at this point, still bought, played and loved it. And I enjoyed platting the remake almost as much. Again, an 8 to 10 hour completion with a lot of searching for collectibles and some fun races and miscellaneous trophies to earn on the way. A 3 out of 10 because a couple of the races are a tad tricky and there's a level not featuring Spyro that I found a bit frustrating. Spyro is a classic PS1 hero from the golden age of the 90s, the best decade ever. And his Reignited trilogy belongs on every PlayStation-loving completionist's trophy list.
Ezio Auditore de Firenze, son to a murdered father, brother to a murdered brother, and he will have his vengeance in this life,
Or in Desmond's.
Poor fucking Desmond.
I really don't know many video game characters as tragic as the modern day Assassin's Creed protagonist. His story really does get ignored in preference of the historical characters whose eyes he sees through. But poor old Des gets proper screwed over in literally every game. Anywho, Ezio's trilogy begins in Assassin's Creed 3, set directly after the events of the first game's modern timeline. And we continue Desmond's story, who is still captive inside Abstergo. But his and our time with Altair has come to an end. It's time for us to meet a new historical hero. Lucy saves him from the Templar's hold and reveals that she is actually an assassin mole sent to rescue him. With nowhere else to go, he follows Lucy and meets the fellow assassins, Sean and Rebecca. Fuck, I still hate Sean. What a bellend he was. And with a new purpose, to train and become an assassin himself. Desmond is linked to a new historical assassin through the Animus 2.0, Ezio Auditore. Ezio brought a swagger his predecessor simply lacked, and his boyish charm won us all over almost instantly. Renaissance Italy provides a glorious backdrop for the parkour mastery of our new hero. AC2 opens with tragedy, making it clear that these trips through time via the Animus will always end one way, in heartbreak. Ezio witnesses his father and brothers executed in the town square, caught in a political plot that he himself would have to unravel in order to exact his revenge. Ezio flees with his surviving mother and sister to the safety of Uncle Mario's rather lush pad, where he learns the way of the assassins, like his father and uncle before him. The game's nemesis is an opposing family, the historically notorious Borgias. This family are more incestual than the Lannisters, more at war with each other than the Skywalkers, and more morally bankrupt than the Trumps. They are done true justice by the Ubisoft Montreal team who developed the game, and the reviled Italian family are the perfect antagonists to the Ferenzis in 2 and Brotherhood. Rodrigo Borgia is the Pope and Ezio's first big bad, who's replaced by reckless son Cesare in the next game. Now, the first 2 games in Ezio's trilogy feel like the first and second half of the same story, because they are, and the best of the story elements are all in the first game, such as Rodrigo proving to be a far superior nemesis. The second game, however, does have more refined mechanics in both combat and traversal that make the gameplay itself more enjoyable and less clunky. The natural evolution of the franchise in its early, brilliant, and inarguably best years. The Platinums are both relatively straightforward and are considered essential plats among many OG trophy hunters. AC2 will take you around 30 to 35 hours and has some trophies that may infuriate you. The In Memory of Petruccio Bronzer is a rite of passage trophy for beginner hunters and is a baptism in feathers. The map clearing is probably the biggest task. You are required to complete each sequence for the story trophies and clear all side objectives for full synchronization. A 3 out of 10 difficulty for a platinum that is arguably one of the greatest out there to earn. Not only because the game is utterly fantastic in every way, but because its platinum holds a special place in the hearts of so many trophy hunters worldwide. Brotherhood has a similar trophy list, but the maps are bigger, the story is longer, and Ubisoft was still actually filling these maps in back then instead of just creating massive open deserts we have in their games nowadays. Brotherhood is 40 hours of your time, and although it doesn't reach the grand heights of 2, it's still a very enjoyable game, and platinum for the most part. I'm not entirely sure why PSMP's guide gives the game a 6 out of 10 difficulty, but if there is something, let us know in the comments. Brotherhood does, however, have missables, and both of them are found in the modern timeline with Desmond, so make sure to find all the artifacts and check your emails. Finally, Ezio and Altair's stories come to a unified finale in Revelations, where a much older Ezio travels to Constantinople to learn of Altair's past and hopefully find him and the missing Apple of Eden, 2 plot threads throughout the series to this point that required resolution. And this is why I love this trilogy so much, because it feels like the first 2 games are a middle installment to Altair's story, a kind of side story to introduce Ezio. And then we go back to Altair and combine the stories together, and I just find that beautiful, fantastic, incredibly well told stories with incredible character development, glorious combat, fantastic traversal, and honestly, some of the most likeable characters in video games. Revelations introduces new mechanics, some work, some don't. The hook for grappling was fun at first, but became more of a gimmick than a mechanic by the end of my time with the game. There are also large chunks of the game that are frankly boring as fuck, and the 30 hours minimum you'll sink into this platinum will be a varied range of fun, excitement, and tedium. Older and less fun, Ezio isn't as charming as he once was, and his swagger is certainly less vigorous in his later years, but he does go out with a bang and ends one of gaming's greatest trilogies by answering a lot of fan questions, while managing to make the mask a few new ones. The Ezio collection is always available on Ubisoft Connect, which is part of your PS Plus subscription if you are on the middle or higher tier. Definitely one you should get round to if you haven't already. Stealth Shooter Crisis earned itself a shiny remaster and a re-release a few years ago, with all three games having fun, short and easy-ish platinum trophies. Released originally in 2008, the first game is set in the future of 2020, which is now the past, and the remaster was released in 2020, the year the game is set in. So what was originally an alt near-future version of Earth is now an alt history?
No, I've gone cross-eyed.
Well, if it is, then someone better tell Wolfenstein that it has competition for best rebooted alt history FPS franchise. Crisis really was that good. I've joked about the first game bricking PCs on its release, but this isn't because the game was at fault, far from it. The game was way ahead of its time in terms of graphics that most PCs simply couldn't handle it. For about 10 years after its release, that whenever someone announced that they'd built or bought themselves a new system, some rando dickhead with more pop trivia references than a Kevin Smith movie, but less personality than Jacob Rees-Mogg, my goodness, that man is a missionary style lights off, no talking pencil dick fucker if ever I've seen one. Sorry, where was I? So you go and buy yourself a brand new, shiny, expensive PC and some Jacob Rees-Mogg looking motherfucker will pipe up with the hilarious and not at all outdated and overused, but does it run Crisis?
It was me!
But the glorious PS5 has no problems running it. Well, it doesn't have problems now following an early but very important patch, but that doesn't matter now, it's perfect, it's fine. Finally, consoles can play Crisis to its absolute fullest. And the trophies are lush, just look at these pretty shiny trophy icons. Brilliant. If you've been watching for a while, then you'll know how much I love older games getting new platinums for me to go and earn. And Crisis is no different. With the multiplayer taken out, it makes the trilogy far less stressful and far more fun for us completionists, at least. The games work on a shield or cloak mechanic. When shielded, you're able to burst in, guns are blazing, and while cloaked, you can stealthily move around maps, taking enemies out before they even know you're there. Slow and silent, or loud and fast, you decide. And you decide in every encounter. You don't develop one side like an RPG build, it's a core twin mechanic of the game, and it's brilliant. You can upgrade both perfectly. And this brute force paired with the graceful assassinations will make you feel like an alien-killing, gun-toting, potty-mouthed Batman with a cooler suit. Crisis 1 is a super easy 3 out of 10, 10-hour platinum. That's trophy list will see you complete the main story on Delta difficulty, hard mode, and help humanity fight back against the dreaded Seth. Delta is toughest at the bookending areas of the game. Learning the mechanics and understanding how enemies respond to your actions will take a little thinking early on, but when it sinks in, the bulk of the game is relatively straightforward. Checkpoints are pretty generous for the most part, and ammo and health pickups are never in short supply. There are some fun miscellaneous trophies that will accumulate, like running 3 kilometers for the Marathon Man Silvo, Team Raptor earned by killing 400 enemies, and the Keen Observer gives you a Silvo for being a peeping Tom and tagging 30 enemies with your binoculars. Crisis 2 is a tad longer with a 15-hour completion and the 4 out of 10 difficulty. Set 3 years after shooting down the ship and enjoying an alien barbecue North Korean style, you're now in New York where the Manhattan virus is causing carriers to suffer complete cellular breakdown. And the Seth are still around trying to kill the remnants of humanity. You will stealth your way through tight areas, enter bullet sponge mode with your shield, but this time we control Alcatraz, inheritor of the nanosuit from predecessor Prophet. You will have to complete the story on Super Soldier mode, but the checkpoints are even more generous in the second game, and it's no harder than Delta was in the first. Some fun miscellaneous trophies to grab, like the hole-in-one bronzer for throwing an alien asshole down the sinkhole. The food for thought bronzer will make you think you're controlling Homer Simpson, and the headhunter bronzer can be fun as it's earned for 4 consecutive headshots. But the Band of Brothers Silvo for keeping every Marine alive in the Semper Fi or Die mission is tricky. But that's only because the AI is fucking stupid and runs into aliens faster than a pedo runs into the park at playtime. Crisis 3 rounds off the trilogy with an almost identical trophy list, and that will also take 15 hours. All 3 games have chapter select, so there's nothing missable, and although some trophies were reported buggy at first, it appears as if patches have fixed them all. So if you've played any of the trilogy recently and have run into any problems, let us know about your experience in the comments. Be a hero, help your fellow hunter out. You may want to get this trilogy popped off relatively soon, as the 4th game is soon to be released, and I cannot wait! I'm hoping the franchise brings back multiplayer, and if it does, I have to ask, in the words of the great Emerald, Sensei Furuski, want to boost with me? Now, I'm not going to lie, I am starting to find this entire list very stiffy-inducing, and I've got most of the platinums on it. Every entry is a game I love and have played over and over and over through the years, and this entry is no different at all. An FPS trilogy so fucking good that each game deserved not 1, but 2 platinums each. Of course, I'm talking about the one, the only Time Splitters. Yes, I know you've heard all this before, but other people in the audience haven't, so shut the fuck up and wait for the next entry, okay? Which, by the way, happens to be my pick of the bunch. Yes, there is a trilogy even better than Time Splitters. Don't fall over. The game's history is a sad and tragic tale, and I will not bore you with the details today. Time Splitters doesn't have an overarching narrative, but don't worry, it's the simplest, most basic plot you'll ever encounter in a sci-fi story. It's not Stephen Moffat Doctor Who, the power of love conquers all stupid, but it doesn't exactly tax the brain to follow. The first game's story is a bit of a mess, to be fair, and it's debatable if the game is even canon to the next two, because there are a lot of contradictions within that game itself, let alone following on to the next two. Plus the fact the game is now set technically in the modern day because they put dates on them, so it doesn't really work, but it's still fun. You'll complete the story missions on normal difficulty, one of which you'll have to depart with full health, but don't panic because that is easier than it sounds, as health pickups are readily available throughout most levels. You will then have to complete all the challenges and arcade leagues, and these can be frustrating, but never fear, all three games come equipped with a rewind feature, making everything far easier than it was 25 years ago. God, I'm getting fucking old. Wow, excuse me while I go and cry my heart out into my Beanie Baby collection listening to Take That cassettes and jerking off over Pamela Anderson. You'll finish this 3 out of 10 10-hour platinum with a creativity split and making your own Time Splitters map to kill your friends on. But don't worry if you don't have any friends, because you don't have to play on it, you just have to make it. Which, by the way, you can make a lot bigger now than we could back when those marvellous creations were bound to the limitations of an 8MB PS2 memory card. And believe it or not, when I got an 8 meg fucking memory card for a PS2, I was so happy with how much space was on it. I never thought I'd fill it up, and I filled it up within a week. Time Splitters 2 introduces new series lead, the Riddick clone, Sergeant Cortez, as he takes the franchise into a more refined narrative direction that seems to forget half the events of the first game. It seems to take the plot from the first game forward, but leaves all the details out. The levels are now longer and more complex, making the game more immersive and far more enjoyable. The humour the first game attempted actually works in the second now that the characters actually matter, and the game builds on its stellar gameplay to deliver a sequel far superior than anyone imagined. And it's this game of the trilogy that hooked fans like me and kept us on that hook for almost a quarter of a century now. A fan-made remake featuring some of the original developers has long been in the works, but even still we all rejoiced at the news the game would finally be ported to PS4 and 5. And then days later we learned they would also receive trophy support. And then less than a week after that we saw the trophy lists and each game was stackable. But the joy was short-lived as the sad news that the reformed New Radical was shut down by owners Plyon. Anyway, Time Splitters 2 was a masterpiece and easily the best FPS sci-fi romp of the early noughties. Its platinum is reflective of the game's internal 100% system, and earning the platinum was nostalgic deja vu of the most wonderful gaming experience I ever had as a kid. I'm pretty sure you need to complete the story on hard to unlock all the arcade levels, but I might be wrong. The trophies do order you to complete each mission on normal or hard, so it is ambiguous, but it really doesn't matter with that rewind button because neither are actually going to be hard. The challenges on arcade leagues used to be tricky, but again the rewind does make them a piece of cake, and my god, I'd love a red velvet cake right now. Oh god, I like red velvet cake. And you know they make it with beetroot. That just shocks me. And I really like beetroot, but I'd never put beetroot in a cake. And then I love like red velvet cake, which is basically just beetroot cake, and that just, oh, I've gone cross-eyed. Sorry, I really am hungry. Content creators should never record videos so close to dinner time. You'll need to find some classic games in your fight against the Time Splitters. 2 cartridges are hidden for you to discover and play. The Anaconda cartridge is found on a shelf in the base in the opening level, 1990 Siberia, and the Astrolander game is in the Neo Tokyo level in the hideout lockers just before you find the captive Time Splitter. There is a third game, Retro Racer, which was actually very fun, and it's found in the Robot Factory level, but for some reason there's no trophy for that one. You should still find it though, because completionism is about completionism. It's not about the trophies, it's about the, getting everything out of the game. 3 miscellaneous trophies round out the platinum, which is probably a 3 out of 10 15-hour run. If you don't use the rewind, maybe a 5 out of 10 if I'm being generous, but none of the trilogy are that hard. The difficulty in these games was always PvP. And at the time of recording, the third game, Future Perfect, is actually my most recent platinum. Cortez takes the fight to the Time Splitters to win this war once and for all. The plan? Well, Cortez has to go back in time and destroy the time crystals before they're even created to stop the war from ever happening, making all 3 games completely pointless. I've wasted my entire life. My favourite games mean nothing. What am I doing with my life? Anyway, the third game is actually doubly enjoyable, as you will discover that two Cortezes are far better than one. Level design is even better here, and the comedy oozes from everything the game throws at you. Even the load screens have witty one-liners to make you chuckle like a stoned teenager, which I was when I played this game originally. Another 3 out of 10 difficulty with a 10 to 12 hour platinum estimate, missions to complete on normal, challenges to gold medal, and then there are the 10 in-game platinum trophies in arcade league mode that you need before you get to say, it's time to split. Bonus entry, which is also a bit of a cheat entry, but also not really. Before my final entry, my top trilogy pick, a sneaky bonus entry that's also a bit cheaty and a bit cheeky. Lego Batman 2 and 3, and DC Supervillains. Didn't see that coming, did ya? So, okay, so not exactly a trilogy, and yes, Lego Batman does have his very own trilogy as indicated by the recommended you play 2 and 3 here. But the first Lego Batman game does not have a platinum, and despite being a totally separate individual game featuring practically the entire DC roster of heroes and villains, it does continue the Lego Batman continuity. Sort of. It's Lego, don't overthink it. These 3 are fun open world adventures suitable for all ages and are a great way to trick your kids into becoming trophy hunters, as my kids will tell you. Each have practically identical trophy lists, but get bigger as you go through. You need to complete the game and then go back and find every single collectible by doing absolutely fucking everything. Luckily, this isn't the Dark Souls trilogy, and Lego lay everything out for you nice and simply, so anyone can follow the games to 100% completion and pop all 3 platinums. I literally know 7-year-olds that have earned these platinums on their own. Lego games are fantastic fun for all ages, and none are harder than a 2 out of 10. The open worlds are fantastic training centres for younger gamers, as they are basically just big RPGs without anything missable or difficult. They are the perfect template for a budding completionist trying to figure out how to go about a big game. These Lego games really did help my daughter find a love of gaming, but my son is addicted to fucking Supermarket Simulator, so I guess he's just a lost cause. That's Cruise influence, I'm telling you. She's into that shit too, and it drives me fucking nuts. My Steam library is filled with some of the worst simulators and fucking point and click games you've ever seen. Finally, we reach the peak of our Mount Olympus of trilogy platinums. My favourite classic trilogy to platinum of all time, God of War, the Greek saga. I'm sure more people have earned the Norse saga's plats than they have Kratos' Greek origins, and that is a shame because the old games are just way more fun to platinum. Why? Well, the sex minigames, the brutality of the violence, the actually adult-themed narrative that didn't sugarcoat the living shit out of everything and introduce an infuriating little fuckwit worthy of only a quick, preferably off-screen death. Yes, I still fucking hate Atreus. I am Team Calliope. Team Calliope for the win. The long-term win, I mean. She's coming back. There's something more real about Kratos' early adventures than his revival. Now, I don't know whether it's the graphic nature of the adult themes or the way in which Kratos' anger feels more genuine than his benign behaviour as an old fart. Whatever it is, no one will ever convince me that the Norse saga is better in any way than the Greek one. Ever. It's hack and slash mayhem at its absolute mythological finest, and these stories are some of the best in gaming, and were just not appreciated to the level they should have been at all. We meet Kratos without wrinkles as he attempts to unalive himself on some rocks, only to be saved by Athena, who promises to rid him of his dreadful memories and relieve him of his guilty conscience. As Kratos unleashes his rage and fury on a massive serpent and hordes of mythical creatures, we discover that he was once a great Spartan who led an army to a great battle that he lost. Was about to lose. So instead of dying, he made a deal with the infamous hot redhead god Ares. In exchange for victory and his life, Kratos pledged fealty to the original God of War. But in further flashbacks, we discover that Kratos was tricked by Ares later on into murdering his own wife and daughter. Kratos vows vengeance and so sets up the quest to dethrone Ares from the Greek pantheon once and for all. Aided by that slippery bitch Athena, who is debatable whether she's evil or not, but does it matter? Kratos seeks out Pandora's box to unleash the one weapon that can kill a god, which basically turns out to be a mystical version of the serum from Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. And it works. It works. I swear to God it works. It's like Power Rangers, you know, when they bring out the Mechazord and the monster gets big, so they jump in and like... Yeah, it's kind of like that, basically. That is how God of War ended. It's better than it sounds, I swear to Christ. I swear to God, it's better than it sounds. I promise. The first game ending in a huge one-on-one fight of giants, not titans, well, not yet anyway, and setting the stage for the second game. The Platinum is a challenging delight that truly cemented my love of completionism when I earned it. It is a 5 out of 10 and should take less than 20 hours to earn over 2 playthroughs and some actual challenges. You can do both runs on easy, but I'd recommend you play on hard for your first run because it'll force you to learn how to end enemies in the quickest possible way, and equally importantly, it'll teach you crowd control, both of which are pivotal to mastering the challenges and getting through the second playthrough though. A sub 5 hour speed run, which is more of a gentle jog, a brisk walk if you will. It's nothing to be scared of, honest. The challenges I mentioned are those of the gods and are inarguably the hardest challenges in any God of War game, and if you have beaten these brutal bastards then you should understand exactly why the reboot challenges disappointed me worse than I must disappoint my dead daddy. The second game sees Kratos sit atop of Mount Olympus on Zeus's council as the new God of War for all of 4.5 minutes, which to be fair is my record time in bed, so I'm very proud of that. The crew is a very lucky girl. So Kratos should be equally proud. Zeus sees Kratos as a threat, so depowers him and sends him to Hades. Kratos inevitably escapes and returns to the living world more pissed off than ever before. And for you kids out there who grew up on Old Man Kratos, if you think this is the Ghosts of Sparta's temper, you know nothing. Jon Snow. God, I need a Game of Thrones re-binge. Yet again, we're after vengeance and to shank Daddy good and proper. Oh, by the way, Zeus is Kratos' dad, so spoilers. 2's Platinum is a little easier in my opinion, and the combat system is more refined and the hitboxes are more generous. God, just looking at these lists again reminds me of all the green orbs I absorbed, the Gorgon eyes I stored, and the weapons I fucking adored. God, I love this trilogy so much. The second game only requires one and a teensy bit of a second run, as you need to use 2 urns of power, which can only be done once you've completed the story. But you can do these literally as soon as the game starts, so it's like a minute. There are a lot of collectibles and of course challenges, this time from the Titans, and they are easier than the first, but not by a whole bunch. God of War 3 is most popularly named the best of the OG trilogy, but I prefer 2 personally. Again, there's no discussion other than which is best when it comes to this trilogy. There is no weak installment. The wonderful people at Santa Monica delivered not only a stellar trilogy, but also 2 side quest handheld games, Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta, which are both very good and very enjoyable platinums on the Vita or on your PS4, as both have been ported and are usually available on PlayStation Plus. Do you know what I'd really like? I'd like to see them do a prequel, maybe to the Greek saga. They've never done that. Never. It never happened. Ever. And that is enough of our ascension into chaos. But I will say the third game's Platinum is probably my favourite. It does require 2 playthroughs, as you only unlock Titan mode when you complete the game on normal. Beating Titan mode rewards you with the Unhuman Goldie, which I just think is an awesome name for a god game. The Amazed Goldie, however, might infuriate you, as you have to beat the Labyrinth without taking any damage, which is much easier said than done. But the same setup of trophies for collectibles and challenges of Olympus await you on this 12 to 15 hour 3 out of 10 trilogy concluding Platinum that ends the Greek saga perfectly in every single way. The boss fights in this game are to this day the very best boss fights in any single game I've ever played, or at least they are my favourite bunch of baddies I have personally vanquished many times over. The beauty in both the narrative cause and outcome of each of these battles, along with the originality, challenge and sheer fun of these fights, make this game an all-time masterpiece every hunter should have the joy of platting. Young angry Kratos is fun Kratos because he loves bathing in the blood of his enemies. Old man Kratos is a fucking buzzkill parent who's 2 years into sobriety and starting to crack. But to be fair, how many parents could tolerate Atreus without becoming a steaming drunk? The game's finale is a jaw-dropping moment that deserves every molecule of its gravitas and every echo of praise to Santa Monica for what is probably my favourite trilogy of all time. In my opinion, obviously. Next will be a batch of equally brilliant trilogies to Platinum for intermediate hunters, if that is even a thing, but for the experienced hunter who wants a challenge, not a broken controller. Do you have any suggestions for that video? Because I've never done a plat harder than 3 out of 10, let me know in the comments. More importantly, which trilogy do you want to see beginner hunters Platinum? What trilogy did I leave out that you think should have been in this list? Let them all know, share the love of great trilogies, great games and great Platinums. Let them know in the comments. Be good to each other and yourselves.